1, 2, 3!
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and welcome to Halloween Horror Movie Reviews Season 3. Yes, we are down to that time of year again. And so, that being said, how is Season 3 going to begin? Well, Season 3 is going to be for a film directed by James Wan and produced by Jason Blum. And as for a film that technically came out in 2011, but it says 2010 just because it premiered at a 2010 film festival. But technically it should say it came out in 2011 because it was released worldwide in 2011. But anyway, the point is, the film that's going to be kicking off Halloween Horror Review Season 3 is going to be for 2011's Insidious, directed by James Wan and produced by Jason Blum, or Jason Bum as I prefer to call him because he's not one of my favorite producers. Anyway, what's the plot of Insidious? Well, a gripping story of a family in search of help for their son, Dalton, who fell in a coma after a mysterious incident in the attic. Little do they know that there is much more to this endless sleep that meets the eye as they explore the paranormal and rediscover the past, the key to getting their son back once and for all. The movie was somewhat of a reaction of Wan's to the success of the Saw series. Well, what I meant to say is, how was this film made? Well, the movie was somewhat of a reaction of Wan's to the success of the Saw series. Wan directed the first Saw film in 2004, and while he stated in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that he was very proud of the movie, he even felt that the movie, specifically the violence and gore of it, put some people off and made them hesitant to work with him. Wan thus made Insidious, in part to prove that he could make a movie without the level of violence found in the Saw series. So, principal photography for Insidious was completed over the course of 3 weeks in 2010, from late April to mid-May, at the Historic Herald Examiner building in downtown Los Angeles. In regards to the shorter shooting schedule, actor Patrick Wilson explained that they had long days and a lot of pages a day, and they didn't get a lot of coverage or rehearsal, but luckily, the benefit of doing a movie that's not on a big budget, and the reason it's usually done like that, is so if the filmmakers felt like that they were not going to sacrifice anything on screen, which they apparently had not, it would let them have complete control, so they were in good hands. Insidious had its... So after the film was shot, marketed, advertised, after the film was shot anyways. Insidious had its world premiere on September 14th, 2010 at the 2010 Toronto International Film Festival. And then, after it was advertised and marketed to the public, it was then widely theatrically released on April 1st, 2011 by Film District, which had defunct it in 2014. And it was successful at the box office that it spawned a sequel in 2013 called Chapter 2, and 2 prequels called Chapter 3 in 2015, and The Last Key in 2018. And the 5th film that will be a direct sequel to Chapter 2 will be coming out next summer. As for reactions, the film has received mixed to positive reviews from critics and audiences. Some audiences critics love the film, and some love the film and view it as a good horror film from James Wan, and there's others who view it as just a loud noise jump scare mess. As for me personally, this was pretty much the film that kind of brought James Wan and Leigh Whannell back into the spotlight since the success of Saw 2004. Before this, he had made 2 other films back-to-back in 2007. One was a horror film called Dead Silence, which was not well received and bombed at the box office, but has kind of grown on a few people. The other was more of a drama mystery thriller called Death Sentence, which nobody remembers existing, pretty much, or even forgot he directed. However, it was Insidious that really got James Wan and Leigh Whannell back on their feet and back into filmmaking. Not just that, guys. This movie was one of the first horror films I saw, and the film that introduced me to James Wan. This wasn't just made by James Wan and Leigh Whannell, who co-created the Saw franchise, which at the time was an October Halloween traditional king for film releases in October. It was also co-created by the producers of a brand new at the time October horror franchise King that would be released every Halloween soon around this time, and ended the Saw franchise for the time being before it got bought back in 2017, called Paranormal Activity, which is not a franchise I like. So it's like two franchise creators who were kings of the Halloween box office at the time, united together with two together to make one horror film to combine their talents and efforts together, and it surprisingly worked pretty well. Many have said they don't find Insidious to be scary or suspenseful. In my opinion, Insidious does take the cake on jump scare horror, similar to how The Conjuring does it. You could tell a lot of effort was put into making the movie as unsettling as possible without excessive violence, language, or disturbing scenes, like a lot of horror movies had around the time this came out. The infinite possibility of the subconscious is something fascinating, and if one truly believes there is something beyond this world, something subtle, a paranormal movie featuring a niche of the paranormal not often explored in cinema, the act of astral projection, and introducing the idea of a greater unknown afterlife that America is typically exposed to. There are no direct attributions of hell or heaven, just a static limbo which past entities inhabit, which the viewer gets to explore in depth towards the finale and is left feeling as if they just explored an alien landscape, despite how quaint and simple it seemed. And throughout the film, immensely underrated cast members like Rose Byrne and Patrick Wilson delivered truthful performances for their appealing characters. Well, at the time, they were pretty underrated. Nobody really knew much about them, but in today's world, they're now much more famous than when they used to be. Like, Patrick Wilson would later work with James Wan again with the Conjuring films and Aquaman. And I think he's going to be in Aquaman 2. And he's going to be directing the 5th movie coming out next year. Rose Byrne even appeared in... A few months after this, Rose Byrne appeared in X-Men First Class, I think maybe Apocalypse as well, a few Paul Feig films like Bridesmaids and Spy, the Peter Rabbit movies, the Neighbors films, a lot more films. They delivered truthful performances for their appealing characters, being able to perfectly portray fearful body expressions in even times of real confusion. The entire cast is so persuasive, like you can barely even notice it's just acting. It feels like actual events unrolling in front of your eyes. And obviously, the most notable, memorable, significant, impressive, and surprising thing about Insidious is its clearly ability to terrify. It does so by using very nightmarishly cold and extremely unsettling imagery, definitely to give kids nightmares, but there's also tension and completely unexpected frights accompanied by the most eerie, discomforting soundtrack that could ever be made for a horror film. Visually, this movie has some of the most unique camera work even in a horror film for the time it came out. Which was great because apparently James Wan really likes to experiment with camera work, and his special effects are relatively fine and age well and look alright on TV. What really sells this movie is that you can kind of feel for the Lambert family. Like, none of them are unlikable. They don't make the dad a prick for a change. Like, not like what they did with Orphan, where they made him so unlikable that I wanted him dead in Orphan. No, with the dad in this, they actually make him likable. You actually can root for the whole family. From the beginning, when they finish moving to their new house at first, they're exhausted and hoping for a better experience than what they have had before, but as Dalton falls into his coma-like situation, you can rapidly see the family starting to fall apart and the tension rise. Then you add in the repeated appearances by the ghosts and gollies, and you can't just help but to think yourself that the Lamberts really got dealt a really raw hand. Like, what's more is that Dalton is even played by T.Y. Simpkins, who's also gone on to be in other films after this, like not just a sequel to Insidious, but also he appeared in Iron Man 3 as Harley, and he reprised a role in cameo in Endgame, played in Jurassic World, and he'll be coming back for this as a coming back for 5 as a college-age Dalton. Aside from the technical bearing, human elements play the part to perfection. This is where most horror movies go off track, relying on effects and sound editing to do the job, as Dalton's parents dish out some plausible portrayals, like I've already said, with lesser screen time, but with as much prominence as Barbara Hershey and Lynn Shay in custom-made roles. Although each plays vital roles in the film, Shay has the edge as an occult specialist. Well, I gotta say, Lynn Shay's character, Ellie... Oh wait, no. Either Barbara or Lynn Shay, but Elise is definitely by far the best character in this franchise. Like, when it comes to the other follow-ups, I like Chapter 2. Yes, I know a lot of people hate Chapter 2, guys, but I like it. It's my opinion. And I do like Chapter 3. And in chronological order, you can view 3, 1, and 2 as a good complete trilogy. To me, I didn't see The Last Key, And from what I heard, it wasn't very that good, so I skipped seeing it. Because apparently it ties into the ending of the first film, and I feel like we didn't need a movie to do that. We didn't really need to see a film tying to the first film, really. The only thing we just needed is Ellie's backstory, how she became a paranormal, ghost hunter. And then 1 and 2, and it's kind of like a complete trilogy arc, to me. However, do the good qualities I have make the first film a masterpiece? Okay. Nope. No, they don't. I still have a lot of problems with the film that I can agree with some haters on. My complaints about the film is, for obvious starters, the ending. For anyone who hasn't seen it, it does not end happy. Because, back then, almost every horror film tried to end like Saw, because, what they did not get, you want to know, is that they didn't even know why the downer ending of Saw worked. No, the reason why the downer ending Saw worked so much was because it was fresh, creative, and it was long planned. And they didn't plan it just to make a bunch of sequels, but Lionsgate wanted a franchise on their hands. Now, the reason why Saw ended on a down note is because James Wan and Leigh-Whannell actually wanted to bring an actually good shock to people who saw Saw in 2004. They actually long planned it when they wrote Saw. They planned that from the beginning. Here, it feels like the downer ending here was just added because Blumhouse wanted the sequel, and they wanted another franchise in case Paranormal Activity died off, and people would eventually get sick of it, which they did. So yeah, it's pretty annoying how this movie ends, because you have to watch Chapter 2 afterwards to get more answers, because it ends so abruptly. I remember this ending being so annoying when I first saw it, because it meant, I didn't even know that James Wan was even going to be making a sequel to this film. So if Wan decided to make a second one, I didn't like the ending till then, until he announced that there would be a sequel. So yeah, but it's not as annoying now after watching Chapter 2, because at least most people will know how Chapter 2 ends. Another criticism I do have is some of the jump scares do work and some of them don't. One jump scare that does work is when Patrick Wilson's character's mom is explaining her nightmare she had with Dalton and this lips red-faced demon with the long fingernails and pointing at Dalton's sleeping body, and as she finishes explaining it, the demon abruptly appears right behind Patrick Wilson's character, which was a pretty effective jump scare. I'll give it that. One other jump scare I do like is when Rose Byrne's character Renee is hearing these screaming sounds from their baby daughter's room, and that was actually pretty effective. I will say, there were some effective jump scares in them, and the bride in black, very creepy to look at. Yeah, there's this dressed up bride in black near the end of the movie that apparently Patrick Wilson's character was afraid of when he was smaller and around Dalton's age. It's briefly mentioned. It's kind of explored more in Chapter 2, but yeah, the ones I don't like are the typical There's also some typical Blumhouse jump scares that I do not like slamming doors and stuff. Slamming doors are not scary, you guys. Blumhouse at the time is just known for banging noises. A lot of Hollywood clearly thinks that banging noises make a film scary. They don't. They do this crap in Paranormal Activity, never scary in Paranormal Activity, because every movie just rehashes the same concept and same scares in that franchise, and almost every horror film around the 2010s just relied on cheap jump scares. There were some that did work, like The Conjuring, and ones that don't have loud banging noises. And then another final criticism I have to mention is that it literally just really focuses on the Lambert family and at least his team trying to help them, And it seems like they don't interact with really anyone or have any friends or colleagues who could help them through such a terrible ordeal as well. Like in any situation like this in real life, they clearly would have friends that would clearly try to think of some way to help them. But I get like nobody would, nobody would really believe them about the demons and stuff. But they could have at least had a plot like that. Like there could have been a few more characters trying to help Josh and Renee save Dalton. In other words, but oh well, like it is what it is. I don't think, and plus I don't think anybody would believe their story about a bunch of demons that they can't see, obviously, or probably don't know, or if they do, they probably don't even know anything about the other. That's the name of the world of demons in the Insidious franchise, guys, so. But yeah. So, despite those bad qualities, Insidious is a perfect introduction to James Wan for those youngsters just starting to get introduced to horror and aren't old enough to watch Saw just yet. However, so far my final recommendation, I would recommend just streaming it though due to the bad qualities I mentioned. But anyway, that's pretty much it for my review of Insidious, and if you're wondering how I'm going to rank Insidious, here's how I'm going to rank this movie.
So overall, if you love either Jason Blum or James Wan and want to see the result if they teamed up to do a horror film, then I would easily give this a watch on streaming for sure. If you're wondering how I'm going to rank Insidious, I'm going to give Insidious a 7.5 out of 10.
There we go. That wraps up my review for Insidious. So, what's going to be the next one? Well, for episode 2, and we got it. Sorry about that. Here it is. Our next episode 2 of Halloween Horror Movie Reviews 3 is going to be for none other than a 1982 classic directed by Tobe Hooper, produced by Steven Spielberg even, Poltergeist. Yeah. I already rewatched this weekend, and I'd watched Insidious way earlier, so tonight I'm actually going to be watching what episode 3 will be. You'll find out what episode 3 will be at the end of the Poltergeist review, but until then, guys, that will be it for episode 1 of Halloween Horror Movie Reviews 3. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone,